Welcome back to the double leg. I am one half of the show. Hey, Job Picks, the other half of the show, the parlay. Joining me in to break down some UFC Vegas 95, nearly at UFC Vegas 100. That's going to be a big celebration. But before we get into the card, the Apex card this Saturday, let's talk about last week, UFC Abu Dhabi. Pretty solid performance by Umar Nurmagomedov last Saturday afternoon. Nearly a 50-45, in my opinion. I think maybe you could have given one round as Corey Sandhagen, but overall, good performance from him. A couple other good performances on the card. How'd it go for you from a betting perspective?
Yeah, adding it up, it didn't feel this way, but adding it up, it was my worst night of 2024 at minus 7.55 units, and it just all came down to my bankroll managing. Man, all my big bets lost. Should have went heavier on Dern and Figgy and Umar decision and Tony Ferguson in case of the end by sub at plus money. But those were like my smaller bets on the spectrum, and then the ones I went heavy on all lost. So I mean, Fernandez and Muhammad Yahya over 1.5 rounds, I thought should have hit easy. That's like the one fight of the card, or one out of 2 or 3 fights that went under that. So it's just a frustrating night, man. Ready to bounce back. I thought the reads were there, bets wouldn't hit. It's kind of an ugly card coming up, though, man. Have to be a little careful on this one.
Yeah, sketchy Apex card coming up. But UFC Abu Dhabi was profitable for me. Went up 3.35 units. A lot of that has to do with the anchor parlays on the overs, man. The overs for cooking on Abu Dhabi, and cashed in on those and hit a nice little play on Sam Hughes by decision, little plus money. Hit a couple other plus money. Fight to go the distance on Gaziev and Mays, and then a couple money lines, Dern and Umar Nurmagomedov, sub decision. Gotta love the brothers. Got it done. But yeah, profitable card there. And then I just calculated today, it was another profitable week in DFS. So over the past 8 weeks, every week, if you follow the two-leggers on Underdog and Better Picks, over the last 8 weeks, we were either profitable or break even. So been absolutely cooking those. And the members are loving it. The members are loving it because I posted the exact results in there. I won't really share here because nobody's probably going to believe me. But we're up a lot of money in DFS, so hopefully that continues. But we've been on an insane run, and hopefully we can continue that. And I feel good about it. So that's the recap for UFC Abu Dhabi.
But I feel like every first of all, every week, you watch if you look at your story after the fights, it's like hit another better pick, hit another underdog play. I mean, like, it's like you were cashing at an insane rate. We talked about it before, but there's nobody that really gives DFS plays out for the UFC consistently. And if you're watching this, you got to watch his stories, watch his posts, because he's giving out winners. Like, it's literally every week. It's insane.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised because even the ones that we lost last week, we lost by 0.5 significant strikes, 1.5 significant strikes, and like 5 significant strikes. Those are the only lines that we lost. And then we hit like 7 or 8 more that went through. So if we get a couple more significant strikes, we're damn near sweeping the board again. And we've swept the board quite a few times. So always locked in on those. Those are really tough to get in, though, because the lines tend to move pretty fast. But if you're able to get it in, man, we'd be making some money. So stay tuned for that. And, of course, all those bets are in the Homo Fight Picks premium membership. That link is down in the description. You join there for a week, a month, or a year. Appreciate all those members that are in there. And we've been on a good run here. I know you were on a lot, or took a loss last week, but you were on an insane run of like 4 or 5 weeks in a row in the profits.
Yeah, 4 weeks in a row. And then I swept PFL on Friday night. I had 3 players, I guess technically 2 plays, a 2-leg parlay at plus money, and then Anthony Ivy, and everything went up over 2 units there. So, but yeah, as far as UFC, 4 weeks in a row, we were in the profit, took a loss this week, looking to bounce back this coming week. So
we got a lot of stuff coming up, man. Contender Series, we got more PFL, and we got UFC almost every weekend until like late September. So
yeah,
jump in there and let's make some money. But let's get into UFC UFC Vegas 95. Could start it off with the first fight of the night. We got some women's MMA, a rematch in women's MMA. These two ladies first fought on the Contender Series, where Alencar was a minus 200 plus favorite. And I went back and watched our breakdown of that fight. And neither of us was really too confident in Alencar, but we knew that she had some pretty solid jiu-jitsu and she should probably win. She was the favorite. She won the first 2 rounds, completely gassed out, and then gets 10-8'd in the third. It goes to a draw. And I went back and looked at my bets and I didn't bet on her. But yeah, I went to a draw. They both get signed to the UFC. And then Alencar goes into the UFC, fights Ray and Amanda. She's the underdog. And she just barely squeaks out a split decision. And now she's booked against her Contender Series opponent. And Stephanie Luciano hasn't fought since then. So very weird matchup to just throw him back in there after they had the draw. But either way, I mean, not a lot has changed. Obviously, Alencar is a lot smaller than Stephanie Luciano. But she was a big favorite over Luciano before that fight happened. And now Luciano has flipped to the big favorite. Very interesting line movement here, in my opinion. What do you think about it?
Yeah, it's interesting because, in that first fight, I think the odds makers probably saw that, Luciano can be taken down. Alencar's got the good jiu-jitsu, especially on top. But, even though Luciano lost those first 2 rounds on the Contender Series, she was able to defend. She made Alencar work too. She didn't just let her settle into her guard. Like, she was throwing some up kicks, moving around, trying to scramble and stuff, and just kept Alencar working and working and working. And ultimately, she gassed out after 2 rounds. That takedown came in the second round for Alencar. She had to work to get that one. She got one stuffed right before that, lands the single leg. You could tell she was a little tired, though, when she was on top of Luciano. And, fight gets back to the feet. Luciano obviously has the striking advantage. She's bigger. She's longer, hits harder. Striking's more technical. And I just think, I kind of felt the same way on the Contender Series. If Luciano can just stuff the takedowns 2 out of the 3 rounds, she's going to win because she's that much better of a striker on the feet.
Yeah.
But if she doesn't, and gets stuck on her back, she's going to lose rounds. Because Alencar, at least through the first 2 rounds we've seen in her fights, she's very good with her control. She's not going to let you back up to the feet. She's either going to jump on your back. She's going to drag you back down. She is quick with that single leg shot too. So it is hard to defend. But, Luciano been in there once with her, felt that, had good energy even from getting taken down twice. And, in the third round was able to get the 10-8. So, yeah, I think Luciano probably is the winner in this fight. Alencar, very undersized again. Like I said, in the first fight between these two, it didn't matter so much. But I think Luciano's probably went back to the drawing board after the loss. Even though she got a contract to the UFC, she's had some time to sit, reflect, get better. I think we see a better version of her. She's going to have a good game plan. She knows exactly what to expect here. And, Alencar's got to be thinking take down or bust, because she felt what happened when she was on the feet in the last fight. She knew she gassed out in that third round. I think she knows she has to get some kind of takedown finish in the first 2 rounds, or it could look very similar to the last fight.
Here's my thing on this fight is she won the first 2 rounds and then she gassed out. And then in her next fight, she loses the first round and then wins the last 2. So ultimately, I think it was she's an undefeated girl. She goes in there against Luciano on the Contender Series. She expects to probably roll through her. She wins the first 2 and then she's gassed out because she went to try to finish her. And then in her next fight, she kind of conserved her energy a little bit more. I mean, that fight could have gone either way. You could arguably say that Ray and Amanda got robbed, but still in the third round, Amanda wasn't really doing much, and Toledo was the one throwing, at least trying to get her out of there. And I gotta respect that about Alencar, man. She will throw. I don't think she's 5'1". I think she's more like 4'11", but she will throw hard and she can take a shot. She's still
strong.
She's strong.
Yeah.
And I think, the fact that she goes for a lot of takedowns, I kind of like. It's she knows where she needs to get this fight. She's not very successful at it. She's 5 of 33 on her takedown attempts. But ultimately, I look at this I don't know that Luciano should be a favorite. Maybe she should be a slight favorite, maybe, but I don't know that I would bet her as a favorite against Alencar, considering We saw the first fight. We saw she had success getting takedowns, and then she gassed out. And that was really the only reason that Luciano won a round. Yeah, it was a 10-8, but Alencar showed she could survive, man. So ultimately, I kind of just say dog or pass and take Alencar. She's at least got a UFC fight. She's got a UFC win. She's tough. She's going to throw, and she's got the superior ground game. So in women's MMA, I'm going to default to the dog here and take Talita Alencar.
I do wonder too, like how much of that was nerves. Like you're on the Contender Series, you're fighting for a UFC contract, and you're a big favorite. Like you're supposed to go out there and perform. Like kind of like you alluded to, she thought she might just roll through her, and all that adrenaline in the octagon. Round 3 comes, maybe she just didn't have anything left in the tank. So I will say against Rayanne Amanda, like she was tired in the 3rd round, but she wasn't exhausted like she was against Luciano. She was on the feet. She wasn't really looking to get the fight to the ground a whole lot. Once she knew the takedowns wasn't going to come, she was comfortable standing and trading on the feet. So, yeah, who knows? Low level women's MMA to start the card.
Gotta love it. You gotta love it. Probably one that you won't really be pissed if you missed it, but I'll be in it.
Yeah.
Next fight on the card, we got Jarno Errens, who is not the favorite. He is the underdog. So flip these lines. We'll get that fixed on the next week, man. Every week we got one of these mess ups, but Yusuf Zalal is the favorite for good reason. Jarno Errens coming in as the underdog. Jarno picked up his first UFC win his last time out, cashed as a dog, and Yusuf Zalal came back to the UFC and cashed in against Billy Q. 2nd round submission from Yusuf Zalal. Looked like a very improved fighter coming back to the UFC. Now he's a big favorite over Jarno Errens, who might be fighting for his job. He was definitely fighting for his job last time, but maybe he's got a 4-fight deal, and this is the last one on it. Maybe needs a win to save his career. What you got?
Yeah, this is one that I definitely lean Zalal. For Jarno Errens, gets a good win against Gwyn in his last fight. But Gwyn's a guy who's just going to stand and trade with you. I think that's exactly what Jarno Errens wants. The guy is a good striker. He's got good boxing. Throws a nasty uppercut and is very powerful too. We've seen him hurt a lot of his opponents, even in his losses. But Zalal is a guy who's fought at such a high level, like win or lose. I know he just beat Billy Q. Billy Q's a little bit older, but I mean, he dominated that fight up until the finish. And his 4 losses before that, or 4 fights before that, he had a draw with Damon Blackshear. And then it's Sean Woodson, Sung Woo Choi, and Ilya Taporia. So, I mean, he's fighting very, very good guys. This is almost a step down in competition. And for Zalal, he's going to be trickier than a guy like Stephen Gwynn in Jarno's last fight, because Zalal is very well-rounded. If you want to grapple with him, he's good there. On the feet, he's getting better every time out, and he's very sharp with the striking too. So I think for Jarno Errens, I don't think he's going to get the gift of having a 15-minute striking battle. I think he's going to have to defend takedowns here. Zalal is fast with him. He's very good when he gets your back. He's very good with his control. And he submitted Billy Q, which had Billy Q really been submitted before? I can't remember. Let's see. No, I don't think he'd ever been submitted in the UFC. So just shows you Zalal's well-roundedness. He's got a great arsenal of attacks on the ground and the feet. I think it's a tough night in the office for Jarno Errens. If he wants to win this, he's got to catch Zalal with something, one of those big uppercuts, probably in the first half of the fight. But Zalal's not a guy that really goes out there and gets chinned very often, and never has been in the UFC. So, and he's fighting guys like Ilya Taporia and strikers like, guys who hit hard like Sung Woo Choi. So, yeah, I got Yusuf Zalal here for sure.
Yeah, I know everyone's going to be taking Yusuf Zalal this week, which I think he probably wins, but I don't know, man. Like, should he be a minus 400 favorite? That's my question. It's like, yeah, he's good, and he's had a lot of tough competition. Like, his losses in the UFC have aged pretty well, except for Sung Woo Choi. But after he got cut from the UFC, like, he was beating guys in the regional scene. It wasn't. They're not very good, honestly. Like, the win that he had before he got into the UFC was 0-0 guy. It's like a kickboxer. He basically just took him down and submitted him. And then I watched that fight against Billy Q, and Billy Q wasn't doing anything, bro. Like, he was literally just standing there taking shots. Went for a takedown, couldn't get it. Got taken down, got his back taken, and got submitted. Like, That was something up with Billy Q in that fight. I don't know if there was something wrong with him, but that was just not the Billy Q that I've seen. And if this fight's on the feet, I think Jarno is a really good kickboxer. But the fact is that, like, if things go wrong for Zalal on the feet, I think he could probably just get a takedown and do his work there because Jarno doesn't have very good takedown defense. He can give up time or minutes on his off his back. And Zalal's got really good jujitsu. So I think Zalal can probably hold his own on the feet. But if he chooses not to take him down, then it's going to be a lot closer of a fight, in my opinion. I think Jarno has a lot more power. Zalal has good footwork, but I don't think he really possesses anything to make Jarno take a step backward. But I do think Zalal is probably just going to try to take him down eventually, and I think he'll probably have success with that. And I think he gets a win. So Zalal is the pick, but at minus 400, it's like, is it really add much? Like, I don't know. It's a weird one for me because Zalal, to me, has never been this guy that's like can't be beat. And I think a lot of people are looking at this fight. It's like, oh, it's a lot. Like, yeah, he probably wins, but minus 400, is it really worth it? So that's my take. We move on. We got Carl Williams and Jonata Diniz. Diniz coming in as the underdog. Carl Williams, 3-0 in the UFC, all by decision. He's going the Bilal Muhammad route. And Hanata Diniz, all wins by knockout. So we got a decisionator and a knockout artist going up against each other. Striker versus grappler, 100%. And the grappler is favored at minus 225. Do you think that is warranted?
Oh, I do. I mean, he's got the thing for me is that he's got UFC experience, obviously, in the wrestling at heavyweight against some of these guys like the strikers that just aren't haven't been training wrestling that long. They just have such a big advantage. Like Austin Lane was able to control Diniz and take him down a little bit. I think if he's able to do that, I think Carl Williams can come across, land takedowns at will. I mean, these big boys that get taken down and trying to get back up for a round or two, they start to get really tired. And Diniz is that guy that's 6'4", 255. Like this guy carries a lot of weight. He does hold a lot of power. Like if Carl Williams messes around a little bit on the feet, I think he's going to be in danger. We've seen him. He hasn't really gone up against a guy with this caliber of striking. Maybe Justin Tafa as far as the power, but in that fight, like Carl Williams was able to take him down 7 times and hold him down and land some ground and pound and grind out a decision win that he got pretty easily. But before that, he's fighting Chase Sherman out of the UFC, Lucas Dresky. I don't know, did he get cut after his last? I'm guessing he's going to be.
No
And then
Lucas
on the
Dresky slander, man. That's my guy. Lucas Dresky.
poor guy. But and then before that, he wins a decision on the Contender Series. So this guy's not out here trying to have these flashy performances. I don't think he really cares about it either. So he's not going to mess around on the feet very long. He's going to look to get a takedown. He's going to look to make it a boring fight and win a 3-round decision. If he can't do that, though, like Diniz is definitely live for the KO. I just don't think Diniz is going to have that much time at space to get his hands going, if I'm being honest. Yeah. Carl Williams just is kind of relentless as a heavyweight. I mean, 8 takedowns against Dresky, 7 against Tafa, only 1 against Sherman, but he looked pretty good on the feet against Sherman in that fight, too. I think Sherman ended up getting a little bit tired, but if I knew Diniz had good takedown defense at this level, I'd be all for taking a shot on him, but it's just kind of an unknown to me. He hasn't been fighting wrestlers of this caliber, taken down by Austin Lane, who is athletic and all, but he's not the wrestler Carl Williams is. So minus 225, I think this is Carl Williams all day.
Yeah, I think so too. Because Diniz, if you're getting taken down by Austin Lane and you're nearly getting TKO'd in the first round, not a good look. Now, I like Diniz. I mean, he's obviously the more fan-friendly heavyweight. Big power, really good kickboxer. Sometimes when he touches you, it doesn't really look like much, but he puts you out cold. And Carl Williams, if he stands and trades with this dude, he might as well just retire because that shows absolutely zero fight IQ whatsoever. Now, I do tend to trust Carl Williams because Carl knows what he's good at. And the reason that he's got 4 straight decision victories is because it's just shooting takedowns and sniffing crotch. So if he does that in this fight, I think he wins because Diniz doesn't have good takedown defense and Carl Williams has the takedowns. He has the cardio to go 3 rounds where Austin Lane messed up is he went for the finish in round 1, gassed himself out, and then in round 2 couldn't get a takedown because he was so gassed and then got knocked out. I don't think Carl Williams is going to get a takedown in the first round and then gas out. I think he gets the takedown, comes out in round 2, gets another takedown. And once you get past, 6-7 minutes after Carl Williams is taking you down, you just don't have the knockout power left. So I think he probably just wears him out and gets another decision victory. So I'm going to take Carl Williams for a pick. And the guy's he's tough. He's a good wrestler. And I think he's serviceable on the feet, but like, bro, just don't mess around with it, bro. Just don't play with that fire. And I think he gets it done. So give me Carl Williams. Up the card, we got Carol Rosa taking on Pannie Kianzad. Kianzad is the underdog. She is the older fighter with a bit more experience, a bit more UFC experience. She's been around for a while. Carol Rosa coming in as the favorite after her loss to Irene Aldana in what I think was one of the best women's fights of all time. We were there. We were there when it happened, and then I went back and watched it today, and I was just blown away at like both of these ladies and how they handled themselves in the fight, because Aldana is more of a boxer and Carol Rosa was just chopping the legs. Carol Rosa landed 95 leg kicks, which is just nuts to me. Oh, he's gone. The lights went out. The power went out. I'll continue. Carol Rosa, man, she landed 95 leg kicks against Irene Aldana. I was surprised that Aldana was still able to walk, but Carol Rosa lost. She won the first, dropped the next two. Aldana just got the boxing going. And then before that, she got a split decision win over Yana Santos, who we'll talk about later. In my opinion, Carol Rosa, she's been kind of up and down since, she was on that 4-fight win streak. She's been kind of up and down since then. But I think she's probably the better overall fighter here. If I knew she was going into this fight with a wrestling game plan, I would like her a lot, because Pannie Kianzad just struggles with getting taken down, getting controlled. She's more of a just straight kickboxer. But even if this fight is on the feet, I think Carol Rosa should probably be able to hold her own. She's got pretty good boxing. She's got a little bit more power than Kianzad, and the fact that she's mixing in a lot of low kicks, I think is probably going to do her well in this matchup, considering Kianzad is there to get hit on the feet. So I think Carol Rosa probably walks away with this one with her hand raised. What do you got?
We're going to be doing this in the dark for a bit, boys. No, yeah. A lot of people ask me, I think I've been to 6 or 7 UFC events in the last 2 years, and people ask me what the best fight I ever saw in person is, and Carol Rosa versus Irene Aldana. It's hard not to put that one at the top. And people look at me like I'm crazy. Like, when did that happen? Because it's women's MMA. But dude, that fight was absolutely insane. It just shows you first how tough Rosa is. She can dish out a beating too. I mean, both girls' faces were messed up after the fight. I look at Carol Rosa and I look at the fight she's had in the UFC, and for some reason I always think she's an older fighter, but she's actually right in the middle of her athletic prime. Yeah, 30 years old, I believe.
29.
Yeah, 29 going on 30. She throws a lot of volume on the feet, and it makes it tough for girls at this level. 6.34 significant strikes per minute. She'll mix in takedowns as well. She does get hit a little bit. I think a lot of that has to do with she's fighting girls like Irene Aldana, Norma Dumont. She's fought some decent competition. Now, Pannie Kianzad, I think she's a good fighter too. Her only losses in her last 4 fights, her 3 losses in her last 4 fights come to Raquel Pennington, who's the current champ, Ketlin Vieira, who has fought at the top of the division, and Macy Chasson, who is a great finisher in her own right. So I think Pannie on the feet, she's not going to have as much volume here. She will get touched up a little bit, and she doesn't really have like a big wrestling game to fall back on if she does get in a little bit of trouble or starts getting overwhelmed, to where I think Carol Rosa does have that in her arsenal. And at the end of the day, when you line up the stats, you look at who these girls have been fighting. They both have a ton of experience, high level experience at that. I just think Carol Rosa is more willing to get in there and fight in some kind of war than Kianzad is. And I think that's what kind of fight this is going to turn into. I'm going to take Carol Rosa. I don't know if I'm going to bet her necessarily at -200, but all things considered, I think she should have the slightly more polished skill set in this fight. She's going to get the dub.
Yeah. If I knew Carol was gonna wrestle, I'd like her a lot more. But since she's coming off that performance bonus where she got 50K for fight of the night, some tells me she's just gonna stand there and strike with her. And then it gets a little bit dicey, but I will still take her for a pick. Moving on, we got Danny Barlow coming in against Nikolay Veretennikov. Veretennikov is the underdog, taking it on short notice, making his UFC debut. Barlow is growing as a favorite. I think he's closer more to like minus 350 now. But he is the favorite. He's still undefeated. Nasty knockout on the Contender Series. Nasty performance against Josh Quinlan in his UFC debut. Another third round knockout for him. Crazy good striker. Long southpaw who mixes up his weapons very well. And on the other side, Veretennikov is a guy that is from Kazakhstan, has moved over to the U.S., trains out of King's MMA in California. Started his career 1-3, and then has gone on a nice streak, and has only lost since then is Michael Morales, who is still undefeated in the UFC and about to crack into the rankings at welterweight. So he's experienced and more experienced technically in professional MMA than Danny Barlow. He is the big underdog. Do you think he could pull one off here?
I mean, at this, not at plus 172, but yeah, last night he was minus 300. Danny Barlow was, and like you said, it's been growing. It's a little concerning because you mentioned it. Veretennikov, his only loss in the last 10 years is a guy who's undefeated in the UFC. A lot of people think he's a very highly touted prospect. He can wrestle. He's got power in the hands, and he's fighting some veterans and getting wins. So it's not like he was blown out in that fight either. There was some moments like late in the fight where Veretennikov was getting takedowns. He was landing some good shots. And even early in the fight, like when it was on the feet in the first round, Veretennikov backed him up with some big right hands. Like he's not going to be a fish out of water on the feet with Danny Barlow. That's usually where he likes his fights as well. He's not like a huge wrestler by any means, at least from the fights that I've watched. He gets a lot of his wins by knockout too. But I feel like if Danny Barlow gets in trouble here on the feet a little bit and somehow is outgunned, I don't really necessarily think Danny Barlow's got the wrestling to fall back on. And I think Veretennikov probably has a little more experience in that realm to where he could try to mix it in this fight too. Now, that doesn't mean to me that he's going to go out there and just beat Danny Barlow with it. But I just think for this line and how it's priced right now, we might see a little bit of a closer fight because Danny Barlow, even though he did get the finish against Josh Quinlan, like it took him till late in the third round. Quinlan's a guy who has not looked good in the UFC outside of his first one or two fights. He's getting beat up by guys like Trey Waters and, of course, Danny Barlow. I don't know. I think on the feet, Barlow's going to have a slight power advantage, maybe throw a little bit more, going to be flashier. But if Veretennikov can just mix in the wrestling or just put him up against the cage, I just think it's going to be a closer fight than people think. I'm taking Danny Barlow, though. I really like him as a prospect. Fun to watch, a lot of power. And if he gets this win, he's going to be a fun prospect in the making.
Yeah, one thing that's weird here is that so Veretennikov steps in on short notice for Uros Medic. And if I'm not mistaken, Uros Medic trains at King's MMA as well. So kind of weird there. Like Medic was supposed to be fighting Barlow. So then they bring in another guy from the same camp. So I don't know. I mean, I think Veretennikov is probably UFC level. I do kind of question some of his wins on the regional scene, though. Like these guys' records really ain't that good. But either way, he's beating them. And I think he can hold his own in the striking. I do think Barlow will probably be landing more impactful shots. He's the longer dude. I think he probably outvolumes him and probably walks away with a win. I could maybe see this being a decision victory for Danny Barlow because I think Veretennikov is pretty tough and he should be able to make it to the scorecards. And who knows, maybe it's a close fight and Veretennikov edges it. But I think Barlow's probably the rightful favorite for sure. But the price is growing, and I don't know if there's a ton of value left, but I will take Danny Barlow for the pick. Moving on, we got Karalampis Grigoriou.
Who the fuck is that guy?
Against Toshiomi Kazama. These two guys, I don't know how these guys are in the UFC. Karalampis Grigoriou is the favorite over Toshiomi Kazama. Grigoriou lost his UFC debut against Chad N. Hillinger And Toshiomi Kazama probably had one of the worst runs in the UFC, man. 0-2. Gets knocked out in the first round by Rinya Nakamura. And Rinya Nakamura is a wrestler. Rinya Nakamura went on to win his next 2 fights by decision. This dude knocked him out in 33 seconds. And then Garrett Armfield knocked him out in 4 minutes and 16 seconds. I think he knocked him down like 2 or 3 times. So obviously, Kazama ain't really a striker. He's a grappler. And on the other side, Karalampus, I don't really know what this guy is, to be honest. He's just a guy that goes out there and he kind of looks like a unit. It looks like he hits hard. And most of his wins do come by knockout, but not against the best competition. And once he faced a guy in Hellinger, who's a veteran of the game, kind of got, shown the UFC level. So I don't know that I could really be confident in a Grigoriou at this price. What do you think?
No, I feel the same way, especially like I look at Grigoriou on the Contender Series, and he lands the big shot in the first round and gets the knockout, but it just didn't really tell me much. Cameron Smotherman had a little hype behind him coming onto the show, but the fight didn't last long enough to really tell us what he's got, if he can last 3 rounds, anything like that. And then he goes in against Chad Anheliger, who's not a big power puncher, who has decent cardio and has taken his fair share of losses in his career. And basically, Chad Anheliger, while he was on the feet, just kind of styled on him. He outlanded him 85-21. Grigoriou was forced to just shoot takedown after takedown. He landed 4, but he couldn't really do anything with him. Chad Anheliger stuffed, the rest of them, not with ease, but a lot of times Grigoriou finds himself just hanging onto a leg for extended periods of time. He's not really doing much with it. And for me, like looking at what the judges are scoring now, I understand takedown attempts and getting cage control and working in knees and elbows. There's a lot of time he's not really doing any of that. He's just hanging on. I don't know if he's waiting for you to make a mistake or what he's doing, but it's almost wasted minutes in the octagon. Anheliger was cracking him a few times too that had him hurt, which just to me is a kind of a red flag. Now, for Kazama, he's not a guy that's going to come in here and have a pretty boxing performance by any means. But, he will swing pretty hard. He will look to land big shots. And if Grigoriou wants to force the wrestling in this fight, that's kind of where Toshiomi Kazama wants to fight, in my opinion. He's got most of his wins by submission. I don't know how good of a wrestler he really is, but on the mat, like he's very competent, has good submissions, and is well-versed there. So I think this is another fight that's probably more even than the line tells us. I think Charalampos coming out of that camp at Sarah Longo, I believe. Is he still there? I'm guessing he's still there. Yeah. I think he got a little bit of hype out of that for his training partners and, who he's fighting under. He's just been he was very underwhelming to me against Chad Anheliger, though. And like I said, on the Contender Series, I just don't think we saw enough to really gauge where he's at as a fighter. Yeah, he's got power, obviously. He's going to look to wrestle. But, Kazama is a guy who wants to fight in the clinch and on the ground. So I'm going to take Grigoriou for the pick, but it's another one that you might be looking up after the fight and thinking, how the hell did I slam this dog here?
Yeah. Technically, I'm 4 for 4 on these guys. Bet Grigoriou on the Contender Series, bet Anheliger in his debut, and then I bet against Kazama his last 2 fights. And honestly, I look at this one and I'm like, I don't know, man. Like, because I think they're both terrible. So, like, I think Karalampus is probably live for a KO early because Kazama just runs forward with his no defense, and he's gonna be there to get hit, and that's how he gets knocked out so easily. Doesn't have hands. His wrestling isn't really that great, but once he gets you to the ground, then he's kind of sticky to you on the ground. You haven't seen it at the UFC level, but his road to the UFC fights, so you look pretty good on top. So if he can get on top, then Kazama's live because he's a pretty good grappler, but he just doesn't have the means to get it there. So it is an uphill battle for Kazama because he's got to get the fight to the ground. So Grigoriou is probably the rightful favorite. It is definitely rich, though. Not any type of confidence I would have in this guy, but he will be the pick for now.
He's going to be a guy, too, that you're going to look at. He's going to be minus 300 by the end of the week. I mean, people are going to look at Kazama.
Nuts.
What's that?
That'll be nuts. Like, just the fact that he's minus, even the fact that he's minus 220 against anybody in the UFC, like, right, after losing to Anheliger, who's not really that good, it's wild.
Yeah. I mean, people see the Kazama knocked out twice in a row, and then Charles Lampos training with Sarah Longo. Like, they're just gonna hammer this kid.
Yeah.
Parlay buster.
This should be a good fight. Looking forward to this one. Alan Nascimento coming in as minus 225 favorite against Filho, sitting at plus 172. Filho picked up a couple wins after his loss to Makayev, a couple of first-round submissions. So it looks like he's turning the tables around since he entered the UFC off that loss. This is a Nova União versus Chuta Box matchup, which is kind of interesting. Two of the best, gyms in Brazil historically, Chuta Box and Nova União. Jafel on the Nova União side and Nascimento, the Chuta Box. Nascimento, one of these guys that doesn't really fight that often, but when he does, he tends to win, and he tends to win by submission. But when he loses, it's always it's always by decision. He's never been finished, but he does have 5 or 6 decision losses. Both guys really good grapplers. That's really their main strength. So we should see some interesting grappling here. Who do you got?
Yeah, I think stylistically, this is really good matchmaking. Both these guys are very similar, not just in their skill set, but their builds. Both guys are kind of tall and lanky. They're very long. On the feet, Nascimento, especially early in fights, like, he shows good kicks and he hits hard. He'll swing and he'll stand and trade with you. But once on the ground's really where he's going to want most of his fights. He's been able to get wins at the UFC level against guys like Jake Hadley. I know Jake just won his fight, was on a little bit of a up and down roller coaster before that, but Hadley's good with his boxing, and Nascimento was able to hang with him, get takedowns when he needed to, and kind of control Hadley on the ground as well. He submitted Carlos Hernandez, something that Ray Saruya could not do, and Ray Saruya is highly regarded as a very big submission artist grappler. And, then his losses come to guys like Tajir Ulanbekov, and he lost to Holly and Paiva by split decision, which on the Contender Series, which was a little iffy. But for Filho, I think he's going to be a very public dog this week. Everybody loves Rafael Filho. They saw him almost submit Muhammad Makayev with the knee bar. Bounces back with 2 wins after that. And I believe it was which fight? Well, it wasn't Ode Osborne, but he was hurt really badly in the Barres fight, right?
Yes.
I think, yeah. He got hurt really badly to where I thought –
he should have been knocked out. Like, he got hit with a body shot, got dropped, got back up, got hit with a body kick, got dropped, and then pretty much stalled his way to get back up, and then ended up winning. So the fight could have been stopped. Like, Mark Goddard was literally standing over him, ready to stop it because it didn't look like he was going to get back up. But yeah, he probably should have been knocked out there.
Yeah, and bounces back to get the submission, and then Ode Osborne, who's on the struggle bus right now, he submits him in the first round as well. I think on the feet though, Filho, he's got good striking. He throws hard. He's powerful. I think it's kind of a wash there. And then if it hits the mat, I mean, Alan Nascimento, I don't know who you take on the mat here either. It's that close of a fight that I can see why it's for a lot of people, this is dog or pass. Both guys match up really, really well against each other. The one thing that I like on the Filho side is that Nascimento has been out for a year and a half. While Filho's, took the fight against Muhammad Makayev last 2 Marches ago, almost a year and a couple months ago, and he's had 2 fights after that. He's staying active. He's 16-3. This guy has not lost that many fights in his professional career. For that reason, I'm going to take a dog shot on him. I think he's going to come in here prepared, a lot of repetitions leading up to this compared to Nascimento, which I just don't really know what he's been up to in the last year and a half. So very close fight though, man. Like I said, this is good matchmaking. These guys are very similar build, similar skill set. Should be one of the better fights on the card.
I'm tempted to go with Filho too, but something tells me, man, I've watched Nascimento and I just think this guy is so good. He's such a good grappler. And I think Filho might have a slight advantage on the feet. And there's not a lot of UFC tape of Nascimento on the feet because most of his fights hit the ground. But if you go back and watch some of his regional tape or even his fight on the Contender Series, he's still pretty decent on the feet. And he's a big dude. He's more durable than Filho because he's never been finished. And Filho does tend to eventually kind of fade. I mean, The fact that he got submitted by Makayev with 28 seconds left after he nearly tore his knee off, and just kind of tap to that, it tells me a little bit. So I think Filho's got a little bit more quit in him, which I don't like. But he is the dog, so I could kind of see the reasoning behind that. And I am tempted to take it, but I do think Nascimento probably wins this one. The submissions that Ulanbekov put him in, he had a mounted guillotine on him. I don't know how he got out of that, because that thing was like so deep. It didn't really look like he panicked at all. And he ended up just pushing him off of him and getting into a better position. He lost the fight to Ulanbekov by split. In his contender series fight, he lost to Halian Paiva, who was 17-1 at the time, by split. I think Nascimento is probably the rightful favorite. Maybe minus 225 is a bit rich, but I do think he's probably the better fighter, and I do think he probably wins. So I will take him for a pick, but I wouldn't knock anybody for taking a shot on Filho. And even if this line continues to rise, then I might be just forced to play Filho in a fight where both guys I think are really good grapplers, and Filho might have a slight advantage on the feet. But for now, Nascimento is the pick.
Here's the last thing I got on this fight, and it almost seems like Nascimento's got a little bit of that Alex Perez syndrome, where he's got so many canceled bouts. Like, since he got into the UFC after the Paiva fight, he's got 8 canceled bouts and 4 fights. Like, he's got 4 fights that he showed up to. He lost once to Ulanbekov, split decision. But, between the contender series and this coming fight, he's got 8 of them that have just been canceled. Like, is it injury? What's the deal? Or half of them his opponent's pulling out? It's tough to know all the time. And then, I'm sure I could look back and find out for sure. But I don't know. Something just tells me maybe Nascimento deals with injuries, bad weight cuts, something along those lines.
Yeah, technically he's 2-2 on pullouts. So he's pulled out twice, and his opponents have pulled out twice. And I guess his last 2 times he pulled out. So maybe he's got some injuries. It's 32. Who knows? Maybe he's just getting beat up in the gym by Charles Oliveira. He's getting injured. But we'll see. Good fight, though. Moving on. We got Yana Santos and Chelsea Chandler. Chelsea coming in as the underdog against Yana Santos, formerly Yana Kunitskaya. Sitting at minus 146. She is the older fighter. She is the fighter with a lot more experience. 22 professional fights compared to 8. And she is coming off the loss to Rosa, who we talked about earlier. 3-fight losing streak for her. Hasn't had a win since 2021, February of 2021, which was a win over Ketlen Vieira, which ages pretty well at this point. And Chelsea Chandler picking up a win her last time out against Josiane Nunes in a fight where she missed weight. She is a massive bantamweight. I will say that. She is probably a 145er, and it's a tough cut for her to get down to 136. And I don't know if she's going to make weight this time.
She's a welterweight, bro.
Bro, she's a big girl. She is a big girl. She's, 2-1 in the UFC. Her only loss to Norma Dumont. And, yeah, she's big. She's from Stockton. She literally fights like Nate Diaz, bro. Straight up. If you watch her fight, she's got that Diaz style where it's like, just watch it, bro. You see it. She's got that Nate Diaz style. Pretty solid jiu-jitsu, decent boxing. And on the Santos side, she is, I don't really know what to put her at. She's like just a girl that goes in there and fights. She's pretty decent overall, but her main weakness recently has been her takedown defense. And that could be a real problem here, because Chelsea Chandler is a girl that likes to get takedowns. What you got?
Yeah, no, it is a tough one, because Santos, looking at her record, loses to Carol Rosa by split decision, close fight, outlanded her by a lot. And then Holly Holm, former champion, Irene Aldana, former title contender against Amanda Nunes. And then she's beaten girls like Ketlen Vieira, who's a good fighter. So she's had high-level experience. On the feet, she throws a fair amount of volume. Her striking defense isn't bad. She'll mix in her own takedowns, although we haven't really seen that game plan out of her in quite some time. I don't think she's landed a takedown, since Yulia Soliarenko, which was 4 or 5 fights ago. Chelsea Chandler, the problem with her is if she gets in the clinch and puts you up against the cage, she's just so much stronger than all these girls. She's either going to find the trip takedown, she's going to drag you down to the mat, and if she lands on top, she's so strong and aggressive too. It's hard to get back up to your feet, and it is an exhausting pace. Kind of saw that against Josiane Nunes. On the feet, Nunes was landing some shots. Chandler would just put her down, got 2 takedowns, landed some ground and pound, and ultimately got the decision victory. The Norma Dumont fight, though, meme of the century for the UFC, where Chelsea Chandler gets cracked on the feet and then runs away directly across the octagon back to her corner, and Norma chases her and stuff like that wasn't a great look. It showed that against higher level opponents, she's there to be hit, she's there to be taken down, and it's not like she's just this skilled fighter. She's just kind of raw still, but she's so aggressive and so physically imposing. Like, I think she gets away against the lower level girls fighting like that, and she gets wins. I don't know if I really put Yana Santos down at a lower level fighter, regardless of her 3-fight losing streak. Like, she's fighting very good opponents. She is a good striker, and her takedown defense isn't the best, but she has some type of wrestling pedigree. And it's not that I even think Chelsea Chandler has the most technical takedown and the most technical wrestling in the world. She's just strong. So I'll be interested to see what happens when they do get into that clinching situation. For the pick, I'm going to take Yana Santos to be more technical on the feet and just land shots and be smart enough to circle out and kind of make Chelsea Chandler chase around the octagon while landing 1-2s, low kicks, and the such, and staying out of the clinch. So, yeah, give me Yana.
My thing with Yana is, like, she doesn't – I don't really think she knows what her game plan is. Like, she goes out there, she just kind of just throws to throw. And sometimes it works out for her. Like, I thought she probably had a good chance to beat Carol Rosa in that fight just based on more volume. She doesn't really throw with a lot of nasty intent, but she just kind of throws reckless, and it's kind of gotten her into some bad spots in a lot of fights. I mean, she got knocked out by Aldana. She got knocked out by Aspen Ladd in 2019. It's like there's openings for girls to hit her because she's so reckless at times. And even if you don't want to strike with her, I mean, Holly Holm was getting takedowns and getting top control on her for a good amount of that fight, and that was Holly Holm's only win in a long time. So I don't know. I mean, I saw on her Instagram today, she was like, this is the first fight that since she had her kid that she's not breastfeeding, so she feels really good. Maybe that plays into it. She actually shares the same birthday as me, and now that I'm looking at it. So shout out Yana Santos, birthday buddy. But on the other side, I think Chelsea Chandler is big. I think if she gets the takedown, it's going to be tough for Santos to get back up. And on the feet, Chelsea can get hit herself, but I don't think Yana Santos really packs much of a punch. And I think Chelsea might be able to hit her with something that could make her respect her on the feet. So I'm going to lean to the dog here in Chelsea Chandler. It's women's MMA. I'm taking the dog, man. It's women's MMA. I'm taking the dog here. Santos lost 3 fights in a row. We'll see if she can make a comeback here after she had that kid 2 years ago. But I got to lean with my girl Chelsea Chandler in this one. Takes us to the co-main event. We got Chepe. Oh, my God. We got Diniz. Come on, bro. Come on.
You know how fucking stupid you have to be
Come on.
to even think something like that, let alone say it publicly.
Jeez.
I promise you guys, Hayden and I are not the ones that put these together.
Good Lord.
We got to text old boy.
Technically, I don't even know who puts these together.
Yeah, I don't either.
We got to have a talk.
People probably think we're being sarcastic right now. We literally don't know who does this on our team.
That ain't Diniz Tallulah, that bro. That's Chad Jackson right there. Chad Jackson. That's the disrespect to Chad Jackson and his newly minted hairline. Good Lord. Well, he's the dog here. That is Damon Jackson, not Diniz Tallulah. Take it on Chepe Mar.
Caught me off guard there. I was like, what happened?
I'm like, what the hell's wrong with this shit? Like, Chepe is the favorite. This is the co-main event. Pretty wild stuff. But Chepe is the favorite here, minus 265. He is undefeated in the UFC. Diniz Tallulah over here is he's coming off a big win. His last time out against Alexander Hernandez was a split decision. I don't know how, because I thought he pretty clearly won. But one judge gave it 30-27 to Alexander Hernandez. Pretty wild stuff. Before that, he lost 2 fights in a row. So I could see why Chepe would be the favorite here, but it does seem a little bit rich to me, considering he's been the underdog in every single UFC fight, and now he's a minus 265 favorite against probably the best fighter that he's facing. What do you think about it?
Oh, yeah, it's tough. You know, Damon Jackson, obviously, in his last fight against Hernandez, looked really good. He's had a little resurgence. Like, he took the loss to Dan Ige, where he got finished in the second round. That was, Dan Ige
You
is a
remember
guy
that
who
one?
holds. Oh yeah. And,
Oh, God, fucking clip to that one. That was a nasty knockout. I would say Chad Jackson gets knocked out like nobody else, man.
Yeah.
That dude, when he gets knocked out, he gets flatlined. I went back and watched that Topuria knockout today. He took that liver shot and just got sent to the shadow realm. But go on, sorry.
I gave him much more of a chance in that Ige fight because he was an underdog against Pat Sabatini and went out there and just worked him, just completely worked him at his own game, flattened him out, TKO from it was on his back, got the hooks in, flattened him out, and it was over. But Ige, sent him down badly. Ige hits like a truck. Ige's super well-rounded and talented, but then Billy Quarantillo just put a pace on him that he couldn't handle. Even though Jackson landed a couple takedowns, Billy would work back up, landed all these strikes like Billy Quarantillo does. When he wins fights, that's how he does it. And then Alexander Hernandez, I picked Hernandez to win just because the youth, I thought he was going to be faster, and on the feet, he'd be hard to deal with for a guy like Jackson who's going to want to get the takedowns. And I thought Hernandez would be strong enough to stuff him, but Jackson looked really, really good in that fight. Even though, Hernandez knocked him down once, Jackson, with the takedowns and what he did with them, I feel like he could have some success with the wrestling against Chepe, but I just don't know if he can hold him down when he does get the takedowns. Like that fight against Morgan Charrier, Chepe showed that how well-rounded he is. He showed that he can fight 3 rounds hard and steal, these close fights away from guys. And I think Chepe's probably just too well-rounded for Jackson at this point. Damon Jackson, how old's Jackson now? Jackson's got to be 35. Yeah. And, Chepe, not exactly, a mid-20-year-old fighter by any means, but he's a guy that's got a lot of high-level experience, even leading up to the UFC. He's fought in guys that hit hard. He can take a punch. He's going to be able to wrestle with Jackson for the most part, in my opinion, at least work back to his feet. And, if he does that, I think he's going to win the striking battle. That's what the judges are going to look for. Might be a 3-round war. Maybe Chepe lands a big shot and puts Jackson down. But everything to me tells me Chepe is going to win this fight unless Jackson has just got the new hairline and is just going to go on some kind of tear that nobody's expecting. But I think it's a bad stylistic matchup. A guy you can't hold down and a guy that's going to hit you hard on the feet is kind of Damon Jackson's kryptonite. So I think Chepe gets it done.
Yeah, I think he probably gets it done too. I just wish it wasn't this line, man. Like, because Jackson has the ability to get the takedown. He's got the ability to win minutes that way. I mean, he can hold you up against the cage, kind of, take half of your back and, 2 minutes have gone by and you're trying to defend this takedown. And if you don't defend it, then he gets you to the ground and he's got a good ground game. I mean, he's 23-6-1. Like, he's got a good amount of experience. It's just that chin, man. That chin be getting hit and it just folds. Like, he even got knocked down by Hernandez in that 3rd round. I'm surprised that he survived that. Like, he went down pretty quick, but he did manage to survive. Maybe that's the new hair just giving him those aura points to be able to go through it. But I think Chepe probably be able to outstrike him on the feet for most of the fight. And he's just a workhorse, man. Even if he does get taken down by Dennis Tallulah here, by Damon Jackson, I think he should probably be able to get out of it because he's not a guy that really accepts a lot of positions. He's just going to keep working, trying to get back up to his feet. He just needs to protect his neck. Don't let Damon Jackson get the body triangle locked in to where he can't get out of it. But I think on the feet, he honestly could be live for a knockout here because Chepe will throw. He will throw hard, and as I said, Damon Jackson ain't got the best chin. So I'll take Chepe for a pick, but price is a little bit rich to me. And that brings us to the main event. 2 absolute slobber knockers here. Marcin Tybura coming in as the underdog against Sergey Spivac, sit at -146. This is a rematch of a fight that happened not entirely too long ago, 2020, February of 2020. It's a little bit over 4 years. Since then, Marcin Tybura has had a good amount of fights. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and he's 7-2. So he's picked up a lot of wins. His only losses to Volkov and Tommy Aspinall. since then, for Sergey Spivac, he is 6-2. So both guys have had a lot of fights since then. I guess we'll see if Spivac has improved anything since then. But when you go back and watch that fight, it was pretty one-sided towards Tybura. And Tybura is still coming in as the underdog. Maybe they're weighing in his age and maybe a level of competition, something like that. But I'm a little shocked to see that Tybura is the underdog here, and Spivac, even coming off the loss to Cyril Gane, is still the favorite. What do you think of it?
Yeah, I'm going to start off with saying I like Tybura for a couple of reasons. Like, first, I think Spivac, his last 3 wins, one comes to Derek Lewis by submission in the first round, which, if Derek Lewis gets taken down by a guy like Spivac, who's good with the jiu-jitsu and everything, and wrestling and control, he's kind of in trouble at this age, at least. I know he used to just stand back up and everything, but Derek Lewis, that's a little bit past him now. And then he knocks out Augusto Sakai, who was getting knocked out like 4 times in a row, and he knocked out Greg Hardy, who was never UFC material. Like, his losses are good, like Tom Aspinall, Cyril Gane, like those are good losses. Those are guys that are still fighting at the top of the division, the ones that interim champ right now. But other than that, like, he's just beating the bottom of the barrel. Jared Vandera, Carlos Felipe, Alexei Olenek was a good win, but he's 80 years old. Tybura is a guy who just finds ways to win over every which style you can think of. Big power punchers like Tai Tuivasa, he's just going to take you down and play that game with you. Romanov had him basically beat his ass very early in the fight, and then Tybura is just able to survive. And if you get tired against Tybura, even though he's a big heavyweight too, he's always got more gas than his opponent in the second and third round. He's going to make it ugly. He's going to get on top, make you pay, and if you gas out, he's either going to find some kind of weird late finish, or he's just going to grind out and win the last 2 rounds of the fights. For Spivac, I just don't really know if he's improved all that much. I don't really know how much room he had for improvement. He's just kind of a guy that likes to come forward. He burns hot. He'll swing some big shots, look for the takedowns. And, if he can't land takedowns against Tybura, I just don't see him having much success in this fight, especially on the feet. Like, he might be able to land the big shots on him, but I think that's kind of a something that's going to fade as the fight goes on. I think in the first round, Spivac could definitely win it. I just don't really see him winning in round 2 and round 3 in the heavyweight division in the UFC, unless it's some absolute bum. And people hate on Tybura, but like you said, he's 7-2 in his last 9 fights in the UFC. He's doing something right. He finds ways to win. If you're going to give me dog money on a guy like that, I'm going to take him. I don't see Spivac coming out here and steamrolling Tybura by any means. So give me Marcin Tybura as the dog.
Yeah, I got to go with Tybura too, man. Because on that first fight, he dominated him. And I don't really see any type of massive improvement from Spivac. Like, sure, he's gotten better. His wrestling's probably gotten a lot better. But Tybura historically has a pretty good takedown defense. Romanov is obviously a big test early as far as, wrestling goes. And he got taken down by him. Got control for most of that first round, but just survived it. Took over in rounds 2 and 3. I think Tybura has a decent enough gas tank. We haven't really seen Spivac go into, the later rounds too much. And I think Spivac, if he wants to win this fight, probably got to overwhelm Tybura early, get his confidence going. I think that's a big thing here. Is like Tybura I think if he loses the first round, he's not going to fade. I think if Spivac is losing the first round, then his confidence goes down low, and then he starts to kind of wilt a little bit. We saw it in the Gane fight. He just kind of froze up in there. And then in other fights, you see it as well, where things aren't going his way. He'll take the way out. And I think considering this is heavyweights and not at the highest level, but at a decent enough level, I'm still going to side with the underdog here. The guy that's won the fight before, I don't think he's washed. He's 38. He's coming off a win as well. He's got the momentum. First round finish over Ty. Spivac coming off the loss to Gane. Like, I think the momentum's on Tybura's side as well. I'm a little shocked that he's the underdog. I'm actually like, what am I missing here? It seems like Spivac should probably be a dog, or at least it should be a pick 'em. But I will take Tybura for a pick, and I would probably assume I'll have a bet on it. But it seems like the line's continuing to move towards Spivac, so maybe you just sit and wait and see. But sometimes you got to act fast. Sometimes the lines move quickly. But Tybura is the pick. And those are the picks for UFC Vegas 95. Hopefully you enjoyed. If you did, hit the like button for us. Hit the subscription button for us if you are not subscribed yet. Follow us at Home of Picks on IG for any updates on the UFC betting. We don't have PFL this week, but we have Dana Contender Series. We got PFL next week, and we got UFC next week. So make sure you join the Home of Fight Picks Premium membership to get all of our bets for all three of those events that I just shared with you and UFC this weekend. Other than that, you got anything for the viewers before we hop out of here?
Hang tight. Shitty card this week, but 305 is looking good, man. And like you said earlier, a lot of fights coming up across all organizations.
Yes, sir. Be smart. You don't got to go crazy. And good luck to you. You can follow us. Follow me on the socials at HeyJockPicks. Where can they find you?
All social media is at the Parlay MMA.
Till next week, Double Leg signing out.